A desire to destroy all the rules of conventional classic narrative cinema led to something like Going Down the Road.
People saw a future for Canadian cinema, very raw, naturalistic, and very sensitive and smart. It didn't reach that many points that high ever again.
I just want to do something that matters, something that shows for myself.
It should be looked at for its simplicity and to retain in people that you don't need a ton of stuff to make a film that's great and holds your attention.
They were making a film for themselves. They were not making a film for an audience. If an audience happened, that was a luxury.
You might even go into business by yourself.
What kind of business could you guys go into?
Hey, come on here! Hey! Look out, Toronto, here we come. All the way!
Going Down the Road was right near the beginning for English Canada. I mean, there wasn't really much out there.
There you can get all kinds of jobs.
What it has is a very direct line to a certain kind of Canadian experience.
It begins with this idea of documentary and realist idealism and bringing life onto the screen.
I mean, Christ, Joey, we just got here a few months ago.
It was such a great and profound film, whether it be Canadian or not.
Unquestionably a Canadian classic and one of the most influential English-language films in our history, Don Shabib's Going Down the Road tells the story of two down-on-their-luck Easterners, Pete and Joey, as they arrive seeking fortune in the big city of Toronto circa 1970. But they soon find out that they're way over their heads and have to scrounge to make ends meet, working dead-end jobs and ending up with barely enough money to support themselves. The film's initial hopefulness gives way to a downcast look at unemployment and homelessness. Going Down the Road captures something essential in the big city Canadian experience. It is a film that may be even more relevant today than in 1970. Employing cinema verite, cameraman Richard Leiterman, and the unique talents of a closely knit set of actors, Going Down the Road was filmed on weekends, at nights, without permits, and with a minimal crew, but with a great deal of skill. Little did Shabib know he was making what would go on to be one of the most famous Canadian films ever made.
When you think in 1970, you're looking back on the decade of the 60s where every single rule was broken by the New Wave and by other young filmmakers. There was this huge sense of possibility again. So that led to something like Going Down the Road. It just seemed so easy. You know, 16mm was around, cameras were around. Film was in the air in a way that I guess video is now.
There was a kind of critical mass of filmmakers who had been working at the NFB in the 50s and 60s who were kind of agitating for a kind of feature film production to get started outside of the walls of the NFB and at the CBC.
They were moving out of the studio, out of the static interview, and actually engaging with the life world, with things unfolding.
A lot of the work that happened at that point in time was stylistically very adventuresome and stylistically very different.
In the late 1960s, the world came to Canada with Expo 67, and calls came for a stronger government influence on culture. In 1968, Pierre Trudeau was elected, and as part of this new focus on Canadian identity, the Canadian Film Development Corporation was formed. Later to become Telefilm Canada, the CFDC was a crucial component in forming a new Canadian cultural identity.
Don Shabib had, I believe, worked around the CBC, and he'd done a lot of documentary work.
He schooled down in UCLA. He was actually a classmate of Francis Ford Coppola.
Born in Toronto in 1938, Don Shabib graduated from the University of Toronto before attending film school south of the border at UCLA. At the same time, another Canadian was studying there, William Fruitt, who eventually would write the screenplay for Going Down the Road.